Welcome. Tonight, we begin an exploration into a specific social phenomenon of feudal Japan, focusing on the historical reality of the samurai who found themselves without a lord. Our account will detail the various circumstances that led to this condition, the routines that defined their lives, and the consistent adjustments they made within the strict societal frameworks of their time. The term Ronin, often translated as wave man, referred to a samurai who had lost his position and master. This transition from service to independence was a formal process, often dictated by specific events and consistent societal rules of the Japanese feudal period, particularly from the 17th to the 19th centuries. One primary circumstance leading to the status of a ronin was the death of a samurai's master. In feudal Japan, a samurai's loyalty was primarily to his lord, known as a daimyo. If a daimyo died without an heir, or if his domain was dissolved, his samurai retainers often found themselves without employment. The consistent expectation in such situations was that the samurai might either follow their lord in junshi, ritual suicide, or dedicate themselves to a new master. If neither option was pursued or possible, the samurai would systematically become a ronin. The formal procedures surrounding a daimyo's succession or a domain's collapse directly impacted the status of hundreds or thousands of samurai simultaneously. Another consistent path to becoming a ronin was the loss or confiscation of a master's domain or territory. During periods of political instability, a daimyo might lose favor with the ruling shogunate, or his domain could be defeated in battle. In such cases, the daimyo's lands and wealth might be seized, leaving his samurai retainers without a source of income or a lord to serve. The consistent economic and political consequences of these events directly resulted in large numbers of dispossessed samurai, who then became ronin. The legal decrees outlining the confiscation were formal documents, methodically removing the samurai's traditional means of support. In some instances, a samurai could become a ronin due to expulsion or disfavor from their lord. This might occur due to a serious transgression, an act of insubordination, or a perceived failure in duty. While less common than the death or fall of a master, it was a recognized, albeit dishonorable, pathway to becoming masterless. The formal pronouncement of dismissal by a daimyo or his retainers would consistently sever the samurai's ties to his former service. The individual would then be required to leave the domain, often carrying only their personal effects. The distinction between a ronin and a samurai serving a different lord was clear within the social structure. A samurai who successfully found new employment with another daimyo would systematically reintegrate into the service class. A ronin, however, retained the samurai status. They were not a peasant or merchant, but lacked the consistent financial support and social standing that came with direct service to a lord. Their existence was defined by this absence of a formal attachment. Historical records suggest that the number of ronin fluctuated significantly throughout the Edo period, peaking during times of prolonged peace. With fewer wars, there was less demand for samurai, leading to consistent unemployment for those who lost their masters. The lack of military conflict meant fewer opportunities for a masterless samurai to gain renown or find new service through battlefield achievements. This demographic shift created a consistent social challenge for the ruling shogunate, which sought to maintain order among a population of skilled but unattached warriors. The very concept of being a ronin carried a subtle layer of social ambiguity. While retaining the social rank of samurai, the lack of a master implied a deviation from the ideal samurai existence of unwavering loyalty and service. This nuanced social position defined their interactions with various strata of Japanese society, influencing their daily routines and the opportunities available to them. For a ronin, daily life often involved a methodical and structured routine, adapted to their masterless status and consistent need for subsistence. Without the fixed duties of a lord's household or military service, the ronin's day was governed by the practicalities of self-reliance. Travel formed a consistent component of many ronins' lives. They would methodically traverse the well-established roads and pathways of feudal Japan, moving from one province to another in search of employment or opportunity. Their pace was often consistent, dictated by walking speed, the need for rest, and the availability of food and water. The rhythmic sound of their straw sandals, zori, on the dusty roads, or their wooden clogs, geta, on paved streets, was a constant companion to their journeys. Lodging varied, but followed consistent patterns based on availability and cost. Ronin might seek shelter in humble village inns, where they paid for a simple room, or stay in more affordable tea houses. In rural areas, they might consistently find lodging in Buddhist temples, which often offered shelter to travelers. When resources were scarce, sleeping outdoors in fields, under trees, or in abandoned structures was a consistent necessity. The preparation of a simple bedroll and the systematic arrangement of their meager belongings marked these temporary resting places. Food acquisition involved consistent and often frugal practices. Ronin might carry dried rice, miso paste, or other non-perishable provisions, consuming them in consistent small portions to conserve supplies. They might systematically purchase food from local markets, focusing on basic and affordable items, like vegetables, fish, or noodles. The consistent preparation of meals, often over a small portable fire or in communal kitchens, was a daily routine. Hunting for small game, if skills and opportunity allowed, could provide supplementary sustenance, a methodical pursuit for food. The maintenance of their samurai equipment, particularly their swords, katana, and wakizashi, was a constant and meticulous ritual. Swords required consistent cleaning, oiling, and inspection to prevent rust and maintain sharpness. The methodical drawing of the blade from its scabbard, the careful wiping with a soft cloth, and the application of a thin layer of oil were precise, repetitive actions performed regularly. The sounds of metal sliding against wood and the soft hiss of oil being applied were common sounds of this consistent upkeep. Armor, if retained,
also required periodic cleaning and minor repairs, a consistent effort to preserve its condition. Subsistence methods for Ronin were varied but consistently systematic. Many sought work as bodyguards. This involved consistently patrolling an assigned area, maintaining vigilance, and protecting individuals or property. The rhythmic pacing of a guard's route and the consistent observation of their surroundings were central to this duty. Others engaged in mercenary work, offering their martial skills for hire in conflicts between minor lords or for protecting trade caravans. The negotiation of terms, the agreement on payment, and the consistent performance of the agreed-upon service defined these engagements. Some Ronin, particularly those with other skills, might consistently engage in craftsmanship, such as making and selling simple wooden items, straw products, or even calligraphy. The methodical repetition of their craft, producing consistent items for sale, provided a source of income that did not rely on martial prowess. The quiet sounds of their tools working wood or paper marked these endeavors. The consistent presence of Ronin in feudal Japanese society, moving through its landscapes and adapting their skills to various forms of livelihood, highlighted a unique social phenomenon. Their daily lives were a testament to methodical self-reliance, structured by the absence of a master and the consistent need for personal sustenance and order. For a samurai without a master, the traditional code of bushido, or the way of the warrior, presented a unique challenge. While often associated with unwavering loyalty to a specific lord, Ronin consistently adapted these principles to their solitary existence, focusing on personal discipline, honor, and loyalty to an abstract code rather than a direct superior. This reinterpretation allowed them to maintain a structured inner life. The concept of honor remained central even without a master to serve. A Ronin consistently strove to conduct themselves with integrity, even in the face of hardship or temptation. This might involve consistently refusing dishonest work, upholding promises, or demonstrating courage when confronted with injustice. The methodical adherence to these personal ethical standards was a defining characteristic for many, distinguishing them from common brigands. The consistent maintenance of their reputation was a quiet, continuous effort. Discipline was a fundamental aspect of a Ronin's daily life. Without the structured environment of a lord's household, personal discipline became entirely self-imposed. This consistently included strict routines for waking, eating, and training. The methodical practice of personal hygiene, even with limited resources, was a small, consistent act of self-respect. The ability to endure hardship without complaint was also a consistent manifestation of their disciplined approach to life.
The practice of martial arts was not merely a skill, but a constant commitment to self-mastery. A Ronin consistently devoted time to training in kanjutsu, swordsmanship, often practicing alone in secluded areas, or seeking out opportunities to spar with other skilled individuals. The repetitive movements of drawing, cutting, and sheathing the sword were performed with methodical precision. The consistent sound of a wooden practice sword, bokken, cutting through the air, or the gentle clang of steel during kata, defined these private training sessions. They might consistently practice specific sword forms, kata, hundreds of times,
refining each subtle movement. Beyond swordsmanship, Ronin consistently maintained other martial skills. This included practice with the yari, spear, or naginata, polearm, depending on their previous training. The methodical handling of these longer weapons, practicing consistent thrusts and sweeping motions, ensured their continued proficiency. Archery, kyujutsu, also required consistent practice, involving the repetitive drawing of the bowstring and the release of arrows, aiming for consistent accuracy. The consistent focus on maintaining these skills was a daily commitment to their identity as warriors. Meditation was a common and consistent practice for many Ronin, serving as a tool for mental discipline and for coping with the psychological demands of their masterless state. Sitting in silent contemplation, often in temples or secluded natural settings, allowed them to maintain inner calm and clarity of thought. The methodical focus on breath or specific mental exercises was a consistent routine. This quiet mental discipline was essential for maintaining a sense of purpose and order in a life that lacked external structure. The concept of loyalty, traditionally directed towards a lord, often became generalized by Ronin. They might demonstrate loyalty to a personal code of conduct, to a specific ideal of justice, or to principles of honor that transcended individual masters. This consistent adherence to abstract ideals provided a moral compass in their solitary journeys. The methodical application of these principles in their interactions with others defined their reputation. The pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement was also a consistent aspect of many Ronins' lives. They might consistently study classical texts, poetry, or philosophy, deepening their understanding of their world and their place within it. The quiet contemplation of these works, often by the light of a simple lamp, was a consistent intellectual pursuit that balanced their physical training. A Ronin's interaction with the various classes of feudal Japanese society was a complex and consistent dance, dictated by their unique social standing. While retaining the samurai rank, their lack of a master influenced how they were perceived and the consistent challenges they faced in obtaining basic sustenance. Perception by the ruling samurai class was often one of suspicion. Ronin were seen as potentially unpredictable elements, outside the established hierarchical order.
They lacked direct accountability to a daimyo, which could make them seem unreliable or even dangerous. Their consistent presence in various domains, moving without clear purpose, often led local authorities to monitor their activities. The absence of a formal retinue or identifiable clan crest was a consistent visual marker of their masterless status, sometimes leading to heightened scrutiny. Commoners, such as peasants and merchants, held more varied perceptions. Some might view Ronin with awe, respecting their martial skills and former samurai status. Others might consistently regard them with apprehension, fearing their unpredictable nature or potential for lawlessness, especially if the Ronin appeared destitute. In some cases, a Ronin's reputation for upholding justice or protecting the weak could earn them respect and consistent hospitality from villagers. The very presence of a Ronin passing through a village could cause a consistent, subtle shift in local dynamics. The rules of conduct for Ronin were largely informal but consistently understood.
They were expected to adhere to the general laws of the shogunate and local domains. Openly challenging the authority of a daimyo or engaging in overt banditry could result in severe punishment. Their consistent adherence to accepted social norms, even in their wanderings, was a key to avoiding trouble. They would often maintain a low profile in settled areas, behaving with consistent reserve. Obtaining food and shelter without the consistent stipends of a samurai retainer was a continuous challenge. Ronin often relied on their swordsmanship skills for temporary employment. As previously detailed, providing bodyguard services to wealthy merchants or landowners was a consistent source of income. This involved guarding caravans, protecting storehouses, or acting as personal escorts. The consistent payment for these services, though irregular, was vital for their survival. Another consistent method of sustenance involved offering their skills as martial arts instructors. A ronin might consistently open a small, temporary dojo in a village, teaching basic swordsmanship or self-defense in exchange for food, lodging, or small fees. The steady sounds of wooden swords clashing or consistent footfalls during practice defined these temporary teaching engagements. In times of great hardship, some ronin might consistently resort to less honorable means of survival. This could involve engaging in petty banditry, though this brought immense social dishonor, and put them in direct conflict with official authorities. Others might consistently offer their services to less scrupulous individuals, blurring the lines of their ethical code. The consistent choice between maintaining honor and ensuring survival was a recurring dilemma for many. The consistent challenge of maintaining their samurai identity and basic needs in a society structured around service to a lord defined the ronins' social interactions.
Their presence was a constant reminder of societal flux, and their daily lives were a testament to methodical adaptation in the face of consistent economic and social pressures. Their existence was a continuous negotiation with their environment. While the image of a solitary ronin is prevalent, many masterless samurai consistently formed or joined groups. These associations, often temporary, provided a methodical structure for survival, mutual protection, and the pursuit of common objectives in a society that often viewed lone warriors with suspicion. The formation of these groups followed consistent patterns based on necessity and shared circumstances. The most common reason for ronin to group together was mutual protection and security. Traveling alone in feudal Japan, especially with valuable samurai equipment, could expose a ronin to banditry or local suspicion. Forming a small group allowed for consistent watchfulness and a collective defense against potential threats. The shared responsibility for guarding and maintaining vigilance was a key aspect of these groups' daily routines. The subtle sounds of shifting weights during a night watch, or the quiet movements of patrols reinforced this collective security. Ronin groups often formed around a shared objective or purpose. For instance, a group might consistently band together to seek vengeance for a fallen lord, as famously exemplified by the 47 Ronin, though their meticulous planning will be detailed later, or to find collective employment as mercenaries for a minor domain. The systematic planning of such endeavors, with assigned roles and consistent coordination, defined their collective actions.
The consistent communication of strategies and tactics ensured a cohesive unit. The structure of these groups was typically informal, but consistently hierarchical. An older, more experienced, or exceptionally skilled Ronin often assumed a de facto leadership role, guiding decisions and mediating disputes. This leadership was usually based on consistent demonstration of wisdom and martial prowess, rather than formal appointment. The collective agreement on daily routines, such as marching order, camp setup, and watch assignments, was a consistent aspect of group discipline. The sharing of resources was a consistent practice within these groups. Food, water, and even simple lodging might be pooled and divided methodically among members, ensuring everyone had basic sustenance. The systematic preparation of communal meals, often over a shared fire, fostered a sense of camaraderie and mutual reliance. This systematic sharing was a practical adaptation to their masterless status. Ronin groups might consistently offer their collective services for specific tasks. This could involve clearing bandit-infested areas for a local village, providing protection in exchange for food or lodging, or assisting with large-scale labor projects like dam construction or road repair. The rhythmic sounds of their coordinated labor, whether swinging picks or moving stones, marked these group endeavors.
Some areas became consistent gathering points or refuges for Ronin. Cities like Edo, modern-day Tokyo, had districts where Ronin would consistently congregate, seeking opportunities for employment, training, or social interaction with others of similar status. These urban centers offered a consistent, if sometimes competitive, environment for networking. Temples and certain tea houses in these areas might consistently serve as informal meeting places. The formation of Ronin groups was a consistent adaptation to their unique social and economic circumstances. These temporary associations provided a structured means for survival, allowing masterless samurai to maintain a sense of purpose and order in a society that often lacked a clear place for them. Their disciplined collective actions, whether for sustenance or specific goals, defined their presence on the feudal landscape. Throughout the history of feudal Japan, certain Ronin figures consistently left notable marks, not always through dramatic exploits, but through their methodical self-improvement, disciplined adherence to personal codes, or participation in specific historical events. Their journeys offer consistent examples of the masterless samurai's existence. Miyamoto Musashi, c. 1584 to 1545, is perhaps one of the most consistently referenced Ronin. After serving in battles early in his life, he embarked on a lengthy period of wandering, often engaging in duels. However, his life as a Ronin was primarily characterized by a consistent pursuit of martial perfection and philosophical understanding. He methodically refined his two-sword fighting style, Nitten Ichi Ryu, practicing tirelessly and consistently engaging in theoretical reflection. His numerous writings, particularly the Book of Five Rings, document his methodical approach to strategy and technique, emphasizing consistent discipline and the practical application of principles. His journey was a consistent process of self-refinement rather than a relentless search for conflict.
Another consistent example of Ronin life, though one culminating in a specific act of collective action, involves the 47 Ronin, also known as the Akko Roshi. In the early 18th century, these were samurai who became Ronin after their master, Asano Naganori, was forced to commit seppuku. Their subsequent actions were not impulsive, but the result of a meticulous and consistently planned process spanning over 2 years. Following their master's death, the 47 samurai systematically dispersed, some taking on humble occupations, others feigning debauchery, all to divert suspicion from their true intentions. This period of consistent disguise and methodical preparation was crucial to their eventual success. They consistently gathered intelligence, acquired resources, and maintained secret communication channels. The disciplined adherence to this long-term plan, enduring hardship and public scorn, was a hallmark of their collective resolve. The very slowness of their planning, over a consistent period of time, was central to their ultimate objective. Their eventual methodical attack on Kira Yoshinaka's mansion to avenge their lord was executed with precise coordination and systematic movements.
Each Ronin had a specific role, consistently performed with disciplined precision. After achieving their objective, they methodically surrendered to the authorities and, by consistent judicial order, committed seppuku. Their story is a powerful, yet ultimately structured example of Ronin operating under an abstract code of loyalty and executing a long-term plan with unwavering consistency. Other less famous Ronin consistently followed paths of scholarship or artistry. Some would dedicate themselves to the consistent study of classical literature, poetry, haiku, or philosophical texts, often living austere lives focused on intellectual pursuit. Others might consistently hone skills in calligraphy, painting, or tea ceremony, finding a new purpose outside of martial service. These individuals, through consistent practice and dedication, often gained quiet renown in their chosen fields, offering their disciplined expertise to those who sought it. The consistent lives of these noted Ronin, whether focused on martial arts, collective vengeance, or intellectual pursuits, illustrate the varied paths available to samurai without masters. Their stories highlight a consistent theme of self-discipline, methodical adherence to a personal code, and the continuous effort to find meaning and purpose within the structured society of feudal Japan. Their unwavering commitment to their chosen path defined their unique presence on the historical stage. A Ronin's interaction with the various classes of feudal Japanese society was a complex and consistent dance, dictated by their unique social standing. While retaining the outward rank of samurai, their lack of a direct master profoundly influenced
how they were perceived and the consistent challenges they faced in daily life. Perception by the ruling samurai class was often one of cautious suspicion. Ronin were seen as potentially unpredictable elements, existing outside the established, rigidly hierarchical order of service. They lacked direct accountability to a daimyo or a formal clan structure, which could make them appear unreliable or even dangerous. Their consistent presence in various domains, moving without a clear, sanctioned purpose, often led local authorities to monitor their activities. The absence of a formal retinue or an identifiable clan crest on their attire was a consistent visual marker of their masterless status, sometimes leading to heightened scrutiny by officials or other samurai.
Commoners, including peasants, artisans, and merchants, held more varied perceptions of Ronin, depending on individual circumstances and the Ronin's personal conduct. Some villagers might consistently view Ronin with a degree of awe, respecting their martial skills and former samurai status, particularly if the Ronin displayed honorable conduct. Others might consistently regard them with apprehension, fearing their unpredictable nature or potential for lawlessness, especially if the Ronin appeared impoverished or desperate. The consistent narratives about wandering swordsmen, both noble and villainous, shaped these varied public perceptions. The very presence of a Ronin passing through a village could cause a consistent, subtle shift in local dynamics, prompting either caution or respectful deference. The rules of conduct for Ronin were largely informal, but consistently understood within society. They were expected to adhere to the general laws of the shogunate and local domains. Openly challenging the authority of a daimyo or engaging in overt acts of banditry could result in severe punishment, often including execution. Their consistent adherence to accepted social norms, even in their wanderings, was crucial for avoiding trouble with authorities and maintaining a semblance of their former honor. They would often maintain a relatively low profile in settled areas, behaving with consistent reserve to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. Navigating social interactions in public spaces, such as tea houses or inns, involved consistent displays of decorum. A Ronin would typically enter such establishments with a deliberate posture, acknowledging other patrons, without engaging in overt displays of their martial skill unless provoked. The consistent politeness in their speech and movements, even when interacting with those of lower social rank, reflected their upbringing within the samurai class. This consistent adherence to social etiquette helped them to avoid unnecessary conflict and maintain a degree of public acceptance. Obtaining basic sustenance like food and shelter without the consistent stipends of a samurai retainer was a continuous and often pressing challenge. Ronin consistently relied on various methods to acquire resources. As previously detailed, providing bodyguard services to wealthy merchants or landowners was a consistent source of income.
This involved guarding caravans, protecting storehouses, or acting as personal escorts, with payment ensuring their basic needs were met. Another consistent method involved offering their skills as martial arts instructors. A Ronin might consistently open a small, temporary dojo, training hall, in a village or town, teaching basic swordsmanship or self-defense in exchange for food, lodging, or small fees. The consistent practice of teaching fundamental forms and principles would ensure a predictable, if modest, income, allowing them to remain in one place for a period. In times of great hardship, some Ronin might consistently resort to less honorable means of survival.
This could involve accepting work from individuals of questionable reputation, engaging in petty theft, though this risked severe legal consequences and immense social dishonor, or even in desperate cases, resorting to outright banditry. These consistent choices, driven by survival, consistently blurred the lines of their ethical code, and often put them in direct conflict with official authorities and their own bushido principles. The consistent internal conflict between honor and basic need was a recurring dilemma for many. The consistent challenge of maintaining their samurai identity and basic needs in a society rigidly structured around service to a lord defined the Ronin's social interactions. Their presence was a constant reminder of societal flux, and their daily lives were a testament to methodical adaptation in the face of consistent economic and social pressures. Their existence was a continuous negotiation with their environment, requiring consistent observation and adherence to unspoken rules. For a Ronin, the absence of a master's demanding oversight meant that the maintenance of their martial and mental discipline became an entirely self-imposed and consistent undertaking. This unwavering commitment to self-improvement was crucial for their survival and for upholding their identity as a samurai. Martial arts training was not merely a skill, but a constant commitment to physical and mental conditioning. A Ronin consistently devoted significant time each day to solitary practice. This included the repetitive movements of kenjutsu, swordsmanship, using a wooden practice sword, bokken. The methodical repetition of drawing, striking, blocking, and sheathing the sword, practicing specific forms, kata, hundreds of times, ensured that their skills remained sharp and precise. The consistent sound of the bokken cutting through the air, or the gentle clang of steel during shadow practice, defined these private training sessions. Beyond swordsmanship, Ronin consistently maintained other martial skills. This included practice with the yari, spear, or naginata, polearm, depending on their previous training. The methodical handling of these longer weapons, practicing consistent thrusts, sweeps, and defensive maneuvers ensured their continued proficiency. Archery, kyujutsu, also required consistent practice, involving the repetitive drawing of the bowstring, aiming at a target, and releasing arrows, all aimed at achieving consistent accuracy and focus. The disciplined act of maintaining these varied skills was a daily commitment to their identity as warriors. Physical conditioning was also a consistent, if often unglamorous, part of their routine. Long walks or runs,
often carrying their personal belongings, served as a consistent form of endurance training. Consistent practice of basic bodyweight exercises or simple calisthenics ensured their physical readiness. The ability to endure hardship, fatigue, and hunger with consistent resilience was a direct outcome of this physical discipline, preparing them for the unpredictable rigors of masterless life.
Meditation was a common and consistent practice for many Ronin, serving as a vital tool for mental discipline and for coping with the psychological demands of their masterless state. Sitting in silent contemplation, often in remote temples, secluded natural settings, or simply in a quiet corner of an inn, allowed them to maintain inner calm, clarity of thought, and emotional control. The methodical focus on breath or specific mental exercises was a consistent routine. This quiet mental discipline was essential for navigating uncertainty, processing their social ambiguity, and maintaining a sense of purpose and order in a life that lacked external structure. The consistent practice of meditation provided a stable anchor for their internal state. The pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement was also a consistent aspect of many Ronins' lives, balancing their physical and martial training. They might consistently dedicate time to studying classical texts, poetry such as composing haiku, or philosophical treatises like those on Zen Buddhism or Confucianism. The quiet contemplation of these works, often by the light of a simple lamp, was a consistent intellectual pursuit that balanced their physical training and provided a framework for ethical reflection. This consistent engagement with knowledge reflected a continued adherence to the scholarly side of the samurai ideal. The consistent adherence to these self-imposed routines of martial arts training, physical conditioning, and mental discipline defined the Ronin's existence. Without the external structure of a lord's service, these methodical daily practices provided an internal framework for order, purpose, and the continuous refinement of their skills and character. Their disciplined pursuit of self-mastery was a testament to their enduring identity as samurai. Without the consistent stipends or land grants that supported samurai in service, Ronin consistently had to develop and rely upon various economic adaptations to sustain their masterless lives. These methods were often methodical and varied, reflecting the individual skills and opportunities available. One consistent source of income was providing guard services. Ronin, with their martial training, were uniquely positioned to offer protection to merchants traveling on roads or to wealthy landowners seeking security for their estates. This involved consistently patrolling designated areas, maintaining vigilance, and acting as deterrents against bandits or other threats. The rhythmic pacing of a guard's route and the consistent observation of their surroundings were central to this duty. The systematic negotiation of payment for these services, often in coin or provisions, was a recurring aspect of their economic interactions. Another consistent adaptation involved mercenary work. During periods of localized conflict between minor feudal lords or wealthy families, Ronin might offer their combat skills for hire. This required consistently assessing the nature of the conflict,
negotiating terms of service, and performing the agreed-upon duties, which could range from participating in skirmishes to protecting specific strongholds.
The disciplined application of their martial prowess for a fee was a direct economic transaction. The consistent preparation for battle, including weapon checks and strategic planning, defined these temporary employments. Some ronin, particularly those who possessed skills beyond martial arts, consistently turned to craftsmanship or other forms of manual labor. This could involve making and selling simple wooden items, such as household utensils or woven baskets, following consistent patterns of production. Others might engage in calligraphy, painting, or even gardening, offering their services to those who sought specialized skills. The methodical repetition of their craft, producing consistent items for sale, provided a source of income that did not rely on their swordsmanship. The quiet sounds of their tools, working wood, paper, or other materials, marked these endeavors. Teaching martial arts was also a consistent economic avenue. A ronin might consistently open a small, temporary dojo, training hall, in a village or town, offering instruction in basic swordsmanship, kenjutsu, or self-defense. This involved consistently teaching fundamental forms, kata, and principles of combat to students in exchange for fees, food, or lodging. The consistent practice of teaching basic movements and guiding students through repetitive drills provided a predictable, if modest, income, allowing them to remain in one place for a period. For those with particular knowledge or experience, consistent work as travel guides or local informants was also a possibility. Their familiarity with roads, terrain, and social customs could be valuable to merchants or officials unfamiliar with a region. This involved consistently accompanying travelers, providing navigation, and offering insights into local conditions, often for a negotiated fee. The consistent challenge of acquiring food and shelter without the traditional fixed income of a samurai retainer meant that ronin had to be highly adaptable in their economic pursuits. Their daily lives were often a testament to methodical self-reliance, structured by the persistent need for personal sustenance and order in a society that did not offer them a guaranteed place within its formal economic structures. The consistent pursuit of various forms of livelihood defined their economic existence. The legal frameworks of feudal Japan consistently influenced the lives of ronin, dictating how they were policed and the consistent consequences of their actions, particularly in their masterless state. While not always directly employed by the state, their movements and behaviors were subject to specific regulations. The Tokugawa shogunate, which governed Japan during much of the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, maintained a consistent policy regarding ronin, aiming to integrate them into society or control their movements to prevent unrest.
This policy evolved over time, but consistently sought to maintain social order. The very existence of laws pertaining to masterless samurai indicated a systematic effort to manage this specific social group. Ronin were consistently expected to adhere to the general laws of the shogunate and local domains. Acts of banditry, theft, or unwarranted violence were consistently punished, often severely. Local authorities, including town magistrates, machi bugyo, and rural officials, consistently monitored the presence and activities of Ronin within their jurisdictions. The consistent posting of official decrees and warnings in public places communicated these legal expectations. The status of masterless often meant a consistent lack of legal protection compared to samurai in service. A ronin could not always rely on a lord's backing or intervention in legal disputes. This made them more vulnerable to arbitrary treatment by local officials or even commoners who felt threatened. The consistent absence of a formal advocate meant they often had to navigate legal issues on their own, adhering strictly to procedural requirements to ensure fairness. In some cases, ronin were systematically employed by the shogunate or by various domains for specific tasks that required their martial skills, but did not involve full retainer status. This could include acting as temporary guards for public works projects, serving as investigators for specific cases, or assisting in local policing efforts. These temporary employments provided a consistent means for the government to utilize their skills while maintaining a degree of control over their numbers. The consistent payment for these official tasks provided an approved source of income. The very act of carrying two swords, the katana and wakizashi, the distinct privilege of the samurai class, was itself regulated. While ronin were generally permitted to carry their swords, their display was often subject to consistent rules of decorum in public places, particularly in urban areas. Openly brandishing swords without cause could lead to legal intervention. The consistent expectation was that a ronin would handle their weapons with discretion, reflecting their disciplined background. The consequences for ronin who consistently violated laws or engaged in disruptive behavior were severe. They could face arrest, imprisonment, or even execution, similar to common criminals, but with the added layer of public disgrace for a former samurai. The consistent application of these punishments served as a deterrent and reinforced the shogunate's authority. The methodical nature of legal proceedings, from accusation to judgment, was consistent across social strata. The legal frameworks surrounding ronin highlight a continuous effort by the ruling powers to manage a segment of the population that existed outside the traditional, rigid, feudal hierarchy.
Their consistent enforcement of laws, coupled with pragmatic approaches to integrating or controlling ronin, aimed to maintain social order and ensure the predictable functioning of Japanese society. The very fact that specific laws existed for their status indicates a continuous recognition of their unique presence. A ronin's reputation and social standing played a consistently crucial, though subtle, role in their daily lives and opportunities. Without the inherent prestige and protection of a master, a ronin's reputation was often their most valuable asset, methodically built and consistently guarded through their actions. A ronin's reputation was consistently influenced by their past conduct while in service. A samurai who became masterless due to the honorable death of his lord might be viewed with more respect than one who was expelled for a transgression. These historical details consistently preceded a ronin, affecting how they were received in new towns or by potential employers. The consistent recounting of a ronin's past deeds, accurate or exaggerated, shaped public perception. Their personal conduct in their masterless state was equally critical. Ronin who consistently displayed discipline, humility, and adherence to honorable principles often gained respect from various social classes. They might be consistently known for their quiet demeanor, their polite interactions, or their willingness to offer assistance without expectation of reward. This consistent adherence to virtuous behavior contributed to a positive reputation. The absence of ostentatious displays, for instance, could consistently signal a disciplined character. Conversely, a ronin who consistently engaged in rowdy behavior, gambling, excessive drinking, or petty crime would quickly develop a negative reputation. This would consistently make it difficult to find legitimate work or secure lodging, often forcing them into less honorable means of subsistence. The consistent avoidance of such individuals by respectable citizens served as a social sanction. The predictable consequence of negative behavior was social marginalization. Martial prowess was a consistent component of a ronin's reputation. A ronin known for exceptional skill with the sword or for having won several duels, even if not for fame but for self-defense, would consistently command a certain level of respect or caution from others. This reputation, though often based on direct observation or consistent rumor, could open doors for employment as a bodyguard or instructor. The consistent demonstration of skill reinforced their standing. The absence of a master's official backing meant that a ronin's reputation had to be consistently earned and maintained through their own actions. Unlike a samurai in service, whose status was largely guaranteed by his lord, a ronin's standing was a continuous reflection of their individual behavior. This consistent need for self-validation influenced their daily decisions and interactions. The consistent impact of reputation on a ronin's daily life was profound. It influenced where they could find lodging, what kind of work they could secure, and how they were treated by both officials and commoners. A good reputation could consistently open opportunities, while a poor one could lead to constant hardship and suspicion. The quiet, consistent efforts to uphold their name were a central aspect of their survival and self-respect in feudal Japan. While most ronin relied on direct labor or mercenary work for subsistence, the consistent practice of patronage and the receipt of gifts from sympathetic individuals or institutions also played a subtle yet consistent role in their economic survival. These were not fixed incomes, but unpredictable yet recurring forms of support. Temples, particularly Buddhist temples, sometimes offered consistent, if basic, forms of patronage to ronin. A ronin might consistently stay at a temple for an extended period, offering their services as a guard or performing general maintenance tasks in exchange for lodging and simple meals. The quiet atmosphere of the temple, with its consistent routines of prayers and meditation, provided a structured environment. The temple's support was often based on a shared spiritual connection or a general respect for the samurai's disciplined nature. This consistent provision of basic needs allowed the ronin to focus on training or study. Wealthy merchants or landowners, in exchange for subtle protection or the occasional display of martial prowess, might offer consistent gifts of food, clothing, or even small sums of money to a ronin. This was often not a formal employment contract, but a reciprocal arrangement based on consistent goodwill and perceived security. The merchant's consistent understanding that a well-regarded ronin nearby could deter petty crime or unwanted attention often motivated these quiet forms of support. The exchange of a modest meal or a new straw sandal was a consistent, informal transaction. Local villagers, particularly in rural areas where official law enforcement was less consistently present, might offer small gifts or provisions to ronin who consistently demonstrated honorable conduct or offered casual protection. A ronin might consistently be offered a bowl of rice, fresh vegetables, or a place by the fire in exchange for simply passing through a village and maintaining a watchful presence against bandits or wild animals. This consistent local support reflected a pragmatic recognition of the ronin's potential utility. The practice of tsujigiri, crossroads killing, while a grave crime, was sometimes exaggerated in popular lore concerning desperate ronin. However, more consistently, the threat or fear of such acts implicitly influenced some individuals to offer small tokens to avoid confrontation, though this was not a sanctioned form of sustenance. The consistent narrative around desperate ronin and their potential for violence may have subtly contributed to certain forms of unsolicited patronage. The consistent willingness of some ronin to engage in teaching basic literacy or arithmetic to commoners also sometimes resulted in gifts or simple payments. Their samurai upbringing often included a basic education beyond martial arts, which they could consistently impart in exchange for various forms of support. The methodical teaching of reading or counting, consistent with their disciplined nature, provided a quiet source of informal income. These forms of patronage and gifts, though irregular, consistently provided supplemental income or basic necessities for ronin. They demonstrated how individuals, without formal employment, systematically adapted to their circumstances, relying on a combination of their skills, reputation, and the consistent generosity of a society that, in various ways, found a place for them outside the traditional samurai hierarchy. The consistent occurrence of these small acts of support reflected the complex social dynamics of the period. Despite various means of subsistence, the status of a ronin consistently carried a subtle social stigma and involved specific formal restrictions imposed by the ruling shogunate and various domains. These limitations influenced their daily movements and opportunities. The fundamental stigma of being a ronin stemmed from the loss of a master, which was often seen as a failure to uphold the core samurai virtue of loyalty. While some became ronin through no fault of their own, example, master's death, the consistent societal ideal was unbreakable service. This consistent societal expectation created an underlying perception of dishonor for many ronin, even if they personally maintained their integrity. This subtle societal judgment influenced their consistent interactions. Formal restrictions on ronin varied but were consistently applied. The shogunate often issued edicts aiming to control their population, particularly during periods of peace when large numbers of unemployed samurai could pose a threat to stability. These edicts might consistently limit their ability to reside in specific cities or require them to register with local authorities. The methodical enforcement of these registration requirements aimed to track their movements and occupations. Ronin were consistently forbidden from serving as daimyos or high-ranking officials without first being formally re-employed by a recognized lord. This restriction aimed to prevent power grabs or the formation of independent factions. Their consistent exclusion from formal positions of power reinforced their masterless status. The act of carrying two swords, daisho, the long katana, and the shorter wakizashi, was a privilege exclusive to the samurai class. While ronin were generally allowed to retain their swords, their display was often subject to consistent rules of decorum, especially in urban centers. Openly brandishing swords without cause could lead to legal intervention. The consistent expectation was that a ronin would handle their weapons with discretion, reflecting their disciplined background, but also signaling their adherence to the law.
Their movement between domains was also subject to consistent scrutiny. Ronin might be consistently questioned at checkpoints or border stations, required to state their purpose for travel and destination. While freedom of movement was generally allowed, any consistent pattern of suspicious activity could lead to official intervention. The subtle but consistent presence of official watchfulness permeated their travels. The formal system of social hierarchy, shino-kosho, which placed samurai at the top, meant that while a ronin retained samurai status, their practical social standing was often ambiguous. They lacked the consistent income and formal duties that defined the upper echelons of the samurai class. This meant they often interacted more consistently with commoners, no-ko-sho, in their daily lives, blurring traditional social lines, but still maintaining an underlying sense of their former rank. The lack of a stable family income and the inability to pass on their official samurai status to their children was a consistent challenge for many ronin. This affected their ability to establish stable households and ensure the future prosperity of their lineage, contrasting sharply with the consistent generational continuity expected of samurai in service. These social stigmas and formal restrictions consistently shaped the daily realities of ronin, influencing their opportunities, their interactions, and their ability to fully reintegrate into the structured society of feudal Japan. Their existence was a continuous negotiation with these limitations, requiring consistent adaptation and a methodical approach to managing their unique position. Beyond the widely known figures,
The history of Ronin is filled with individuals who, in various ways, left a consistent, if sometimes understated, mark on their era. Their stories exemplify the diverse paths taken by samurai without masters. Oishi Kuranosuke Gube Mitsuyoshi, 1607 to 1650, while eventually serving the shogunate, spent a period as a ronin. His time as masterless is consistently depicted as a period of solitary travel and intensive martial arts training. His journey was a consistent pursuit of personal mastery, often challenging established schools of swordsmanship, not for fame, but for the systematic testing and refinement of his own techniques. His consistent dedication to his art became central to his legend. Oishi Kuranosuke, 1659 to 1703, is the famous leader of the 47 Ronin. After their lord's forced suicide, Oishi consistently took on the appearance of a dissolute individual, spending time in geisha houses and drinking establishments. This was a methodical deception, designed to throw off the suspicions of the shogunate's spies. His consistent adherence to this facade, while personally difficult, was crucial to the systematic execution of their long-term plan for revenge. His meticulous record-keeping and strategic communication with the other Ronin demonstrated a disciplined leadership even in a masterless state.
Yamamoto Tsunetomo, 1659 to 1719, though he became a monk rather than a wandering ronin after his lord's death, consistently reflected on the ronin's plight and the meaning of bushido in his influential work Hagakure. His writings offer consistent insights into the samurai mindset, including how one should act if masterless. His methodical collection of teachings provides a textual record of these considerations. Many ronin consistently took on roles as bodyguards for merchants or travelers. These were often less glamorous positions than serving a daimyo, but they provided consistent employment and allowed the ronin to maintain their martial skills. The methodical routines of guarding caravans through dangerous passes or protecting urban storehouses were regular tasks. The consistent vigilance and readiness for action defined their working hours. Others dedicated themselves to scholarly pursuits or religious practices. Ronin might spend years studying Buddhist texts, copying sutras, or engaging in philosophical debates. This intellectual work often occurred in temples or secluded huts, far from the bustling society, reflecting a consistent dedication to learning and inner peace. The methodical copying of texts and the consistent practice of meditation defined their daily routines. Some ronin, with a consistent desire to apply their skills, might establish small temporary dojos in remote villages or towns. Here, they would consistently teach basic swordsmanship or self-defense techniques to commoners or local gentry who sought instruction. The methodical teaching of forms and principles and the consistent practice of their students provided a modest but reliable income. The rhythmic sounds of training with wooden swords became a consistent part of the village's ambiance. These diverse paths illustrate that the life of a ronin was not a single, uniform experience, but rather a consistent adaptation to circumstances. Whether through rigorous self-discipline, methodical planning, or quiet engagement in new professions, ronin consistently sought to uphold a sense of order and purpose in their masterless existence.
Their various journeys collectively paint a picture of resilience and continuous engagement with the structured world around them. The consistent presence of Ronin in feudal Japan, while often viewed as a sign of instability, also had subtle and consistent impacts on society and culture. Their unique position, outside the rigid structure, but still possessing samurai skills, allowed for certain dynamics to unfold. One consistent impact was on the dissemination of martial arts knowledge. As Ronin traveled, they often established temporary dojos or taught in rural areas where formal martial arts training might not have been consistently available. This meant that high-level fighting techniques, which might otherwise have remained confined to clan dojos, were systematically spread across different regions and to various social classes. The consistent teaching of kata and principles by these masterless warriors ensured the broader transmission of combat knowledge.
Ronin also contributed to local security in some areas. In regions where official samurai presence was sparse, a group of honorable Ronin might consistently offer protection against bandits or other threats in exchange for food or lodging. This systematic provision of security by capable warriors filled a consistent need and contributed to a sense of order in vulnerable communities. The consistent patrolling of roads or the guarding of harvests by these masterless samurai provided a tangible benefit to commoners. Their experiences often influenced popular literature and theater. The figure of the wandering Ronin, facing hardship, seeking redemption, or upholding justice, became a consistent character in ukiyo-e, woodblock prints, kabuki theater, and later jidaigeki, period dramas. These portrayals consistently explored themes of honor, loyalty, and perseverance in the face of adversity, reflecting and shaping societal views on the samurai ideal, even in its unattached form. The consistent depiction of the Ronin as a solitary, determined figure resonated with audiences. The Ronin's forced self-reliance also subtly contributed to the development of new skills and adaptability beyond traditional samurai duties. As they sought diverse means of subsistence, some consistently engaged in commerce, craftsmanship, or even farming. This practical experience broadened their understanding of Japanese society beyond the narrow confines of the warrior class and contributed to a consistent, if informal, exchange of knowledge between social strata. The methodical learning of new trades by former warriors exemplified adaptability. The existence of Ronin, particularly during the long period of peace under the Tokugawa shogunate, also served as a consistent reminder of the changing nature of the samurai class itself. As Japan modernized and military conflict became rarer, the role of the samurai became more bureaucratic. Ronin, by their very existence, consistently highlighted the challenges of this transition and the inherent difficulties of maintaining a warrior identity in times of peace. Their struggles symbolized a consistent tension between tradition and evolving societal needs.
Finally, the phenomenon of Ronin provided a consistent focus for governmental policy and social discourse. The shogunate consistently sought ways to control, employ, or integrate them to prevent social unrest. Debates within samurai society consistently revolved around their status and their potential roles. This continuous discussion ensured that the Ronin's unique position remained a consistent topic in the social and political landscape. Our exploration of the samurai and Ronin now extends beyond their daily lives and social structures to encompass specific historical figures who stood out, the consistent myths and legends that emerged around them, and their enduring, often stylized representation in various forms of modern entertainment.
The historical figure of Yasuke represents a unique and consistent deviation from the typical demographic of samurai in feudal Japan. His presence in the service of Oda Nobunaga, a prominent daimyo of the late 16th century, underscores the occasional yet systematic inclusion of individuals from outside traditional Japanese society into roles of significance. Yasuke's precise origins are subject to consistent historical debate, with theories suggesting he hailed from Mozambique, Angola, or Ethiopia. What is consistently documented is his arrival in Japan in 1579 as a retainer or servant of the Italian Jesuit missionary Alessandro Valignano. His entry into Japan's structured society was initially as a curiosity due to his consistent physical appearance. Accounts consistently describe him as a man of great stature and dark skin, characteristics that were highly unusual and noteworthy in 16th century Japan. His initial encounter with Oda Nobunaga was a pivotal moment. Upon seeing Yasuke, Nobunaga, known for his interest in novelties and unique individuals, initially suspected that Yasuke's skin was merely colored with ink. He ordered Yasuke to be stripped and scrubbed, a consistent action taken to verify his appearance. When it was confirmed that Yasuke's skin color was natural, Nobunaga's interest reportedly grew significantly. This methodical verification highlights Nobunaga's pragmatic approach. Following this initial encounter, Nobunaga quickly took Yasuke into his service. Historical records consistently indicate that Yasuke was granted various privileges. He was given money, a residence, and a katana, longsword, which signified his elevated status. Some accounts consistently suggest he may have been granted a stipend and personal attendance, typical for samurai retainers. This rapid and consistent assimilation into Nobunaga's inner circle was highly unusual for a foreigner at that time, reflecting Nobunaga's unconventional judgment. His period of service under Nobunaga was relatively brief, lasting approximately 14 months. However, it included significant historical events. Yasuke was consistently present during the Honnoji incident in 1582, where Nobunaga was betrayed by his general Akechi Mitsuhide
and forced to commit seppuku, ritual suicide. Yasuke consistently fought alongside Nobunaga's few remaining loyal retainers during the siege, demonstrating his dedication even in dire circumstances. His actions during this final desperate stand are consistently mentioned in historical accounts.
After Nobunaga's death, Yasuke reportedly offered his sword to Nobunaga's heir, Oda Nobutada. However, Nobutada soon followed his father in death. Yasuke was then reportedly captured by Akechi Mitsuhide's forces. His fate after this capture is not consistently documented. Some accounts suggest he was spared by Akechi and sent to a Jesuit mission. Others speculate about different outcomes. The consistent ambiguity surrounding his final years adds a layer of quiet mystery to his life. Yasuke's story, while brief in its documented span, consistently represents an instance where individual merit and unique characteristics transcended the rigid social structures of feudal Japan. His consistent presence in Nobunaga's service highlights Nobunaga's pragmatic approach to talent and his willingness to defy conventional norms. Yasuke stands as a unique example of an individual from outside the typical samurai lineage, achieving a consistent, if limited, place within the most powerful military households of the era. His life's trajectory, from foreign arrival to samurai service, offers a distinct historical narrative. Beyond the documented historical realities, the figures of the samurai and ronin have consistently been subjects of a rich tapestry of mythos and legends. These narratives often extrapolate from real events or historical figures, systematically shaping popular perception through consistent storytelling. One pervasive myth involves the unbreakable loyalty of the samurai. While bushido certainly emphasized loyalty, historical records consistently show instances of samurai changing lords, betraying alliances, or acting for personal gain. However, the consistent popular narrative often focuses solely on examples of absolute, unwavering devotion, sometimes to an idealized degree. This portrayal simplifies the complex political realities of the feudal period, consistently emphasizing a singular virtue. Legends frequently detail the superhuman martial prowess of individual samurai or ronin. Figures like Miyamoto Musashi, while historically skilled, are often consistently depicted in popular tales as capable of defeating multiple opponents with impossible speed, or performing feats of swordsmanship that defy physical limitations. These narratives systematically exaggerate real abilities, contributing to an aura of invincibility. The consistent retelling of these heroic duels, often with specific, memorable details, reinforces the idea of unmatched skill. The concept of honorary seppuku, ritual suicide, is a consistent theme in legends, often romanticized. While seppuku was a real practice, consistently performed under specific, formal conditions, legends sometimes simplify its context, presenting it as a common, almost inevitable outcome for any samurai who faced disgrace or defeat. This systematic emphasis on a specific ritual often overshadows the complex circumstances and alternative choices that sometimes existed. The consistent visual representation of this act in art and theater reinforces its legendary status.
Legends also abound concerning cursed or haunted samurai swords. Specific blades are consistently said to possess spirits, bring misfortune to their wielder, or thirst for blood. These narratives often provide detailed descriptions of the sword's appearance, its origins, and the consistent calamities that befall those who possess it. This systematic attribution of supernatural properties to inanimate objects adds a layer of mystique to the samurai's primary weapon. The sound of a sword being drawn in these legends might carry an ominous tone. The figure of the Ronin itself is often surrounded by specific, consistent legends. Tales frequently portray them as solitary wanderers, righting wrongs, protecting the innocent, or seeking redemption for past failures. These narratives consistently highlight their independence and their struggle against adversity, often contrasting their noble actions with their fallen status. The consistent depiction of the Ronin as a lone, often melancholy hero seeking purpose resonates strongly in folklore. Some legends involve supernatural encounters experienced by samurai or ronin. These might detail encounters with yokai, supernatural beings, vengeful spirits, onryo, or mythical creatures. In these stories, the samurai's martial skill might be tested not by another human, but by a consistent supernatural adversary, requiring unique courage or spiritual purity to overcome. The systematic integration of supernatural elements to their heroic narratives is a consistent feature. The consistency of these myths and legends, passed down through generations via oral tradition, written accounts, and later various forms of media, systematically shapes the collective understanding of samurai and ronin. They serve to distill complex historical realities into memorable narratives, emphasizing specific virtues or challenges, and contributing to the enduring mystique of these warrior figures. The repetitive telling of these tales ensures their passage through cultural memory. Video games consistently offer interactive and highly visual representations of historical periods, and the figures of the samurai and ronin have been a consistent presence in this medium. The upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows provides a contemporary example of how these figures are systematically depicted. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, the game consistently presents two playable protagonists, one of whom is a female shinobi named Naue, and the other a historical figure, Yasuke. This choice immediately brings a specific interpretation to the samurai narrative. Yasuke, as discussed, was a unique historical figure.
His consistent depiction as a playable character allows the game to explore his journey and potentially his role within Nobunaga's era in an interactive format. The character's design, consistent with historical descriptions of Yasuke's physique, contributes to a specific visual representation.
The game's narrative structure consistently places Yasuke in a role that involves direct engagement with Nobunaga's service and the broader conflicts of the period. This systematic integration of a historical figure into a fictional storyline is a consistent characteristic of the Assassin's Creed series. Players consistently experience combat and movement within a meticulously recreated historical environment. The methodical exploration of feudal Japan's landscapes, castles, and towns becomes a central gameplay loop. The portrayal of samurai combat in Assassin's Creed Shadows consistently emphasizes specific mechanics. Players engage in sword fighting that attempts to reflect the weight and precision of historical Japanese weaponry. The animations for sword swings, parries, and blocks are consistently designed to appear deliberate and impactful. The consistent visual feedback of successful hits or parries, along with specific sound effects, clashing steel, grunts of effort, provides a systematic combat experience. The use of stealth mechanics, though more associated with the shinobi character, also influences how samurai-like encounters might be approached by players. The game's open-world design allows for consistent exploration of various environments, from bustling castles to tranquil rural landscapes. Players systematically traverse these spaces, often on horseback or on foot, experiencing the day-night cycles and environmental conditions. The architecture of castles, temples, and villages is consistently rendered, aiming for historical accuracy in design and layout. This consistent visual immersion in the feudal Japanese setting is a primary draw for players. The game also consistently incorporates elements of social hierarchy and daily life from the period. Non-playable characters, NPCs, consistently go about their routines, engaging in activities like farming, trading, or patrolling. This consistent background activity creates a sense of a living, breathing historical world. The interaction with these NPCs often follows consistent patterns, allowing players to gather information or receive quests. The representation of samurai and associated figures in Assassin's Creed Shadows, therefore, is a consistent blend of historical detail and gameplay mechanics. It systematically allows players to inhabit roles within feudal Japan, engaging with its architecture, combat styles, and social structures in a structured and interactive manner. The game's methodical approach to historical recreation, combined with consistent gameplay loops, defines its depiction of this era. The figures of the samurai and ronin have been a consistently compelling subject in cinema, particularly in Japanese and later international productions. These cinematic portrayals often systematically shape public perception, presenting specific interpretations of their lives, skills, and code. Japanese cinema, especially the jidaigeki, period drama genre, has consistently depicted samurai and ronin since the early 20th century. Directors like Akira Kurosawa played a pivotal role in establishing
iconic representations. His film Seven Samurai, 1954, provides a consistent example of the Ronin archetype. It systematically portrays a group of masterless samurai who are hired by a village to defend against bandits. The film consistently details their methodical planning, their disciplined training, and their unwavering commitment to a cause, despite their masterless status. The sword fights in Kurosawa's films are often characterized by their consistent realism and emphasis on quick, decisive movements, rather than prolonged acrobatic exchanges. The methodical pacing of the film, building tension through consistent character interaction and strategic development, is a hallmark of this genre. Other Japanese films consistently explore the internal struggles of Ronin, focusing on their sense of duty, their search for purpose, or their confrontations with societal prejudice. Harakiri, 1962, for instance, consistently depicts the desperate circumstances that could drive a Ronin to seek honorable death, and the systemic societal structures that contributed to their plight. The film uses a consistent, somber tone to explore the themes of honor and poverty, showing the methodical unfolding of tragedy.
International cinema also consistently adopted and adapted the samurai archetype. Hollywood productions, often influenced by Kurosawa's works, presented their own interpretations. Films like The Last Samurai, 2003, consistently featured samurai figures, often romanticizing their code and depicting their resistance against modernization. While these films often emphasized the visual spectacle of combat, they also consistently attempted to convey aspects of samurai discipline and loyalty. The consistent portrayal of grand battles and individual acts of bravery in these films shapes a particular global image. The visual representation of samurai and Ronin in cinema consistently adheres to specific aesthetic codes. The katana, longsword, is consistently depicted as their primary weapon, often a symbol of their soul and skill. Their attire, including kimonos, hakama, wide-legged trousers, and occasionally armor, is consistently designed to reflect historical styles, even if sometimes stylized for dramatic effect. The consistent depiction of specific gestures, postures, and fighting stances in sword duels reinforces a standardized visual language of samurai combat. The systematic framing of shots, often wide and contemplative, is a common cinematic technique to convey the historical period. The sound design in these films consistently contributes to their portrayal. The distinct sound of a katana being drawn from its scabbard, the consistent clang of steel on steel during combat, and the methodical footsteps of a wandering Ronin all serve as consistent auditory cues that define the cinematic experience of feudal Japan.
The quiet moments in these films are often punctuated by subtle ambient sounds, building a consistent atmosphere. Overall, cinematic depictions consistently contribute to a global understanding of the samurai and ronin, systematically shaping their iconic status through repeated visual and narrative motifs. These films offer a consistent and often romanticized, yet structured, glimpse into their historical existence. The figures of the samurai and ronin have been a consistent and enduring presence in traditional Japanese theater, particularly in kabuki and bunraku. These theatrical forms utilize highly stylized conventions to systematically portray historical narratives, often shaping public understanding through consistent performance. In kabuki theater, samurai and ronin characters are consistently central figures in historical plays. Their costumes are consistently elaborate and colorful, often reflecting their social status, clan affiliation, if any, or masterless condition. The consistent use of specific makeup patterns, kumadori, on actors' faces systematically indicates their character traits, such as strength, villainy, or melancholy. This stylized visual presentation is a consistent element of kabuki performance. The movements of kabuki actors portraying samurai and ronin are highly stylized and consistent. They utilize specific postures, mie, exaggerated walks, roppo, and precise gestures that convey emotions or actions in a systematic and recognizable manner. Sword fights, called tachimawari, are meticulously choreographed, consisting of consistent, repetitive movements that emphasize precision and visual impact rather than realistic combat. The rhythmic clatter of wooden clappers, hyoshigi, and the consistent music from various instruments, like the shamisen, provide a structured auditory backdrop to the action. Plays consistently exploring the theme of revenge or loyalty to a fallen master are particularly common, with the story of the 47 Ronin, Kanadehon Chushingura, being perhaps the most consistently performed and influential example. This narrative systematically portrays the Ronin's methodical planning, their disciplined adherence to a code of vengeance, and their eventual success, followed by their consistent, honorable suicide. The consistent portrayal of their suffering and unwavering resolve systematically reinforces specific cultural values. In bunraku, the traditional Japanese puppet theater, samurai and ronin figures are also consistently depicted. The puppets themselves are large and intricately crafted, with consistent facial expressions and costume details. 3 puppeteers consistently manipulate each main puppet, working in precise, coordinated movements that give the puppets a lifelike yet structured quality. The consistent narrative is delivered through a chanter, Taiyu,
who recites the story, accompanied by a shamisen player. This systematic division of labor ensures a consistent and controlled performance. The portrayal of samurai and ronin in bunraku consistently focuses on themes of duty, sacrifice, and the internal conflicts between giri, social obligation, and ninjo, human feeling.
The stylized movements of the puppets, though not human, consistently convey the dignity and struggles of these warrior figures. The deliberate pace of bunraku performances, with its consistent narration and musical accompaniment, creates a meditative atmosphere for the audience. Both kabuki and bunraku consistently use established theatrical conventions to explore the complexities of samurai and ronin life. Their consistent emphasis on stylized movement, symbolic costumes, and traditional music provides a systematic and enduring representation of these historical figures, shaping cultural understanding through repetitive and highly formalized performances. These theatrical forms offer a consistent lens through which to view the virtues and dilemmas associated with the warrior class. As our comprehensive exploration of the masterless samurai, the Ronin, concludes, we reflect on the pervasive theme of consistent adaptation and unwavering discipline that defined their existence. We have methodically examined the varied circumstances that led to their unique status, from the fall of clans to the death of their lords, each path a consistent severing of traditional ties. Our journey meticulously detailed the structured routines of their daily lives, from their consistent wanderings across Japan's provinces to their methodical search for sustenance. We observed how they consistently engaged in diverse economic activities, such as bodyguarding, mercenary work, or various forms of craftsmanship, always driven by the continuous need for survival. Their relentless dedication to the maintenance of their samurai equipment, particularly their swords, showcased a consistent commitment to their identity, even without a formal master. We delved into how Ronin consistently adapted the principles of bushido to their solitary paths, focusing on self-imposed honor and personal discipline as guiding forces. Their unwavering commitment to martial arts training, through consistent individual practice of kenjutsu, yari, or kyujutsu, and their methodical engagement in meditation, demonstrated a deep and continuous pursuit of self-mastery. This consistent self-improvement was crucial for their physical and mental fortitude. Our exploration also covered the complex social perceptions they navigated, consistently viewed with a mix of suspicion and respect by various societal strata. We observed the consistent adherence to unwritten rules of conduct and the methodical challenges they faced in maintaining their reputation.
The formation of Ronin groups provided a consistent framework for mutual protection and the pursuit of collective goals, showcasing a unique form of social organization outside the established hierarchy. We also touched upon the stories of famous Ronin, whose lives, whether through long quests for mastery or meticulously planned collective actions, provided consistent examples of their enduring spirit. The consistent presence of Ronin also left a tangible mark on society. They contributed to the dissemination of martial arts knowledge, sometimes provided local security, and consistently appeared in popular culture, influencing literature and theater. Their experiences consistently highlighted the social dynamics of feudal Japan and the ongoing efforts to manage a unique segment of the population. What emerges from this detailed examination is not a chaotic image, but a picture of remarkable consistency and internal order. The Ronin, despite lacking an external master, consistently imposed a rigorous discipline upon themselves. Their lives were a testament to methodical adaptation, unwavering self-reliance, and a continuous negotiation with a society that simultaneously admired and mistrusted them. The unyielding determination to maintain their identity and purpose, even in the absence of traditional structures, defined their consistent journey through feudal Japan. This comprehensive look into the methodical existence of the masterless samurai should now offer a structured understanding of their nuanced place in history. Allow the consistent patterns of their lives to guide your thoughts. Thank you for joining us tonight on Board to Bed. We truly appreciate you choosing to spend your valuable time with our detailed explorations. We hope this comprehensive journey through the consistent realities and routines of the Ronin has provided the perfectly structured backdrop for your transition to sleep. Remember, for more wonderfully boring stories designed to lull you into deep slumber, be sure to subscribe to Board to Bed. Sweet dreams.